Welcome everyone. Thank you to you all for coming to this Global Learning at Uni SQ information meeting. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and waterways on which we work, live and play. I'd also like to pay our respects to elders, past, present and emerging, and acknowledge that these lands have always been where teaching and learning has taken place. All right, also before I bring the slides up, if you're not quite sure about Engagely, if you look down at the lower control line, there's a big hand. And when you press that hand, it takes you up to the podium. You can practice now if you want to. So please, if you want to say something, thanks, Rod. If you want to say something, and Kylie, please press the hand because that brings you to the podium and we can see you, and it puts people in order of when they press, raise their hand. You also have the chat window, which is just to the right of the hand, and the Q&A. Now, if you go to Q&A, I have uploaded the PDF of the slides that I'm about to show you and talk through. You can grab that now if you want to. It does have hyperlinks on that will be useful for you. And then, of course, you've got your own notes section. That's your personal notes section. You can take screenshots of the slides or write some notes and download it at the end. All right, so that's right next to the hand there as well. And don't forget the reactions. To the left of the hand, you've got your thumbs up, heart, etc. So lots of reactions would be good. I'll even turn the sounds on. There you go. It's that sort of session. You can have some sounds as well if you like. Okay. All right, so let me start. Up the top left-hand side, you will see that it says File, Share, Class Gallery and Tables. Now, you can flick from any of those at any point. It doesn't affect anyone else's view. You can go from one to the other. I'm going to just make sure that you're all looking at File at the moment. I've just directed you to File, but you can have a look at Class Gallery and see people's faces, or go to Table View and see who's sitting at your table at any point. All right, so look, I'm really excited to be able to bring this information to you in a more organised way after pretty much 3 years of work on this in this university. And since my recent Erasmus Plus opportunity in Europe in June this year, there are some other things now happening, and we are moving forward with this opportunity. So let's see where we go with it. So I'm going to talk about online global collaborative learning. Now, that's what I call it, OGCL. This is actually from my PhD. I did my PhD on this, online global collaborative learning and pedagogical change. So I'm using that terminology at the moment. So, and this is not meant to be a presentation, but I do have a few things to say, and I'll give you a chance to chat and ask questions, of course, very soon. So as I see it, and you may agree with me or you may partly agree, online global collaboration encourages students to collaborate and learn with others from different cultures. It's pretty simple. However, it is not typically embedded into formal curricula in higher education. Now, I'll be quite upfront. Out of the 40 years that I've been in education, 30 of those were in K-12, and 10, just over 10 now, have been in higher education. And there is a lot of global collaborative learning going on in K-12, but still not the level that I'd like to see. Even post-COVID, there are still issues that stop this from really working. But now my focus is on higher education. And I'd like you to sort of think, as we move through this, where do you see higher education going in the future? And there are major changes happening at the moment. This university, other universities, and there must be changes, I think, for higher ed to actually survive. And we could talk about that ad infinitum, but we're not going to. So some of those things I've put there are some of the changes I think that we're going to see, or we should see. And these are, of course, all talking points and all tend to relate to the topic that I'm talking about now. So I want to share with you a vision for flexible and collaborative learning. And my vision is that every student, every year, does experience an online global collaborative learning opportunity within their course, within their program. It's not a one-off, and it's not in addition to all of the other study that they have to do. It's actually embedded into their course. And this, of course, is in support of global competency, global networking opportunities, co-creation of knowledge, and reflective practice. Now, I think we're actually getting quite good at doing reflective practice at Uni SQ, and I think in some disciplines, some of the others are okay as well, but we could do better. All right, so in this session, this is what I want to cover, and I won't read all that out, but I do want to talk about what it is and give you some examples. We'll have a bit of a chat, table chat, and then I'll give you some hints as to how we might get this started. And I'm not saying that it isn't actually happening in the university at the moment. I'm just not quite sure where it might be happening, and I'm hoping if it is, you will enlighten me. So, features of online global collaborative learning. We're talking about geographically dispersed. I mean, we could do an OGCL project with a school in Melbourne, a university in Melbourne or a university in Sydney. That would be geographically dispersed, and it might be a useful project. It probably would, but it might be more interesting for us to do it with an Asian country, or even work out the time zone differences and do it with a European or USA country, state, etc. So think about that. It involves the use of digital and online technologies. It does involve redesigning curriculum so that the global collaboration is embedded. And it's essentially learning with and from others beyond our immediate institution. And of course, this is going to pop up a lot. Flexible learning environment. What does that mean? And we talk about this quite a bit at the moment in terms of our synchronous and asynchronous learning environments. Now, an important thing I need to share with you is that OGCL, as I said, that's what I'm calling it, is often referred to as COIL. And that's okay if you want to call it COIL. COIL stands for Collaborative Online International Learning. COIL has been around for 20 years, and that's good. It's actually a product of the State University in New York in the USA. They have a whole community of practice. They have a whole professional learning section that you pay for. I did a couple of courses earlier this year to get a foot in the door and see what they were about. And they do a pretty good job, I think. There are a number of academic papers. In fact, I'm doing a systematic literature review at the moment around this, and there are academic papers going back nearly 20 years around COIL. COIL is quite US-centric. Often the US try to be global, but they're not often very global. In fact, I tell you that after 20 years of working with the US people, a lot of them are my good friends, and you may understand what I'm saying, and that's not a criticism, that's basically how I see it as a fact. So I think we have an opportunity here to do something a little bit different, particularly with our geographic location and our attitudes and willingness to collaborate and flatten what I call flatten the learning. All right, there are some key concepts. I'm going to go through some of these now, not all of them exactly, but let's go through this one. So this is based on some literature, the concept of connectivism. George Siemens, who is a Canadian who's actually based in Adelaide at the moment, one of the universities in Adelaide. And he talks about, expertise through connected networks. And then, of course, there's Garrison, who's also a Canadian. Or he's in Canada, he might be American. Collaborative learning, community of inquiry. And then there is Harassim, who is Canadian, talks about collaborativism, learning theory and higher ed based on peer discourse. So there's some theoretical structures to support the pedagogy of what we're doing with OGCL. There's also the whole communities of practice piece, Wenger trainer, and bringing together groups of people around the domain of global collaborative learning, the community, and the practice of this curriculum design. Some reasons why we would bother, and of course there are many really good reasons. I'd say it's imperative for all learners to be interculturally and globally competent. It also provides a focus for technologies and digital fluency development. And it's a new paradigm for learning. Now, we've had the internet for 30 years, but it's still quite new. I think particularly higher education, we're still quite insular and inward looking. It's really hard to be outward looking, particularly as a lot of our data, our learning, our teaching is behind a wall. And there are reasons for much of that to be, it has to be behind a wall for many reasons, a lot of it, but not everything needs to be behind a wall, and not everything we do needs to be contained within our own little system. And it does support graduate outcomes and employability, and that is a couple of really good reasons. And I know we talk about employability quite a lot. So if you're involved with that, if you're thinking about that for your course, that would be one really good reason for you to jump into this. And online global collaboration supports glocalization. I was going to talk a little bit more about that. So glocalization, to my mind, is where you think global and act local. It's a bit of a mantra. And you accept differences, apply to the local context without homogenization, etc. And it's about glocalizing your curriculum to support global collaborative practices. And that will look different depending on, it'll be different depending on the discipline, depending on the year level, the objectives, etc. And just some literature, I've got some references at the end, just looking at some benefits, once again, cultural intelligence. And, this applies to staff as well as students. It's not just all benefits for students. These experiences of global collaborative learning are quite powerful for all participants. Increasing global mindset, Garcia. I talk about mindset quite a lot too in my research, but I won't bore you with all of that today. Supports collaborative skill building and co-creation. Right, so we're basing this on good research, good literature. All right, I've got 3 examples here, so I'm just having a look at people's faces to see who I've got in the room now. Welcome, everyone, if you jumped in before I saw you. What does this look like? So here's a typical example. Now, this is something I have done at the high school level. I haven't done it at higher ed. I've done a few things at higher ed level when I was teaching, but global debates. So you put students into cross-institution debating teams. You use a tool such as VoiceThread, or you could use Padlet, and you do virtual asynchronous debating, and you set up a program. So week 1, the speaker on each side have to record their asynchronous debate. Then week 2 or to 3, you get the rebuttal, and then you get the formal debating format, which some of you I'm sure are familiar with. And then, of course, you can have judges go through and listen to each one. You can have peers go through and make comments on each part of the debate. You can have a winner. Students can reflect on their participation in the debate or on their listening to it and who they thought won. So this is one example that really could be interdisciplinary or disciplinary. I've actually grabbed a couple from COIL. Now, COIL have a few things on their website and also doing a couple of courses with them. I grabbed quite a few resources. And these 2 I thought were really interesting because they're really thinking outside of the box. And this one is on the left, Raising Public Awareness of Domestic Violence. Now, this was a television broadcasting class in Mexico and a gender studies class in South Africa. So just think about that, those 2 combinations. And students discussed issues of domestic violence, etc. Students were placed into 2 groups, and each group was tasked with creating a film to be shown on local TV stations. That's an exciting project. That's a really exciting project. And then the other one, the photographic evidence, forensic science in Turkey and photography in the US. So exploring the role of photographic evidence around a criminal case, small group working, developing scenarios, use of photography, etc., etc. So I think these 2 in particular really show you that you're only limited by your imagination. And of course, you would already have interesting and exciting elements in your course that are probably linked with assessment. And you could think, well, how could I redevelop this a little bit to really build something global for my students? Another idea, this one I've also done at the high school level. Students put into cross-institution groups. They do research, collaborate on research. They produce a group website, and then every individual student, so a group of 5 or 6, produce a video to go on the website around the theme. And the video needs to include an outsourced clip from one of their partners. So you might design a 3-minute video and say, right, can you do 30 seconds for me climbing the Great Wall or something? And, you know, this could be a student sitting in Australia and they get a clip of the Great Wall. And it has to be very contextual and not just looking ridiculous. But actually, you could be amazed at what high school students can come up with these projects. And of course, these days, consider the use of AI tools, you know, AI for video creation or AI for image creation as well. And then, of course, we've got this immersive reality development, which is close to our hearts here at UniSQ, our hive that needs a bit of a shot of adrenaline at the moment, but it's hanging in there. Once again, cross-institution groups, collaborative research, group product, virtual reality environment, individual product, learning tasks for users and written reflection. Now, there's an example of this where I was in Germany on the Erasmus Plus. I went to our partner university, JLU Gießen, and their archaeology section are really keen to collaborate with our archaeology section, and I didn't realise we had an archaeology discipline. It's very strong, very active in School of Humanities and Communication, and we're in the process of setting that up now. And when I was in Germany, I saw what they were doing with virtual reality and setting up a museum type of construct as part of their project. So we're hoping we'll get our students together and do that. So and this is very rough putting this together, but you know, what might this look like? Well, if you're looking at say 4, 5 or 6 weeks within your course, you'd start with a meet and greet. You would open the project, preferably synchronous, so students can see each other, you know, talk in real time. And then you would have the collaboration, whatever that is, which would really focus on asynchronous tools, VoiceThread, Padlet, whatever, Google Docs or whatever tools will work for both institutions. And that's, of course, another challenge. And some synchronous peer-to-peer could take place. That's up to the students. And then you'd have a final closing, you know, the sharing, the reflection, and the celebration. And that's a typical template. We could, you know, modify that depending on the need. All right, so this is really important. When we were planning this at the start of the year, and I met with some colleagues, I think some of you are in the room, people said to me, you're going to have to say what's in it for everyone. You know, why are people going to do this? Because obviously it's going to be extra work. You know, and that's why I'm giving, you know, this may take a year to put together. This may take 18 months. It may take 6 months. But if you don't start, you don't finish. That's my attitude. So why would you bother doing this? You know, I think this is really enhancing your pedagogical leadership in online learning skills. Looks good on your CV. It will enhance your understanding of innovation and ed tech and virtual learning environments. It will give you skills in cross-border collaboration. You know, it doesn't come naturally to think, oh my goodness, Germany's 8 hours behind at the moment. What does that mean? 4 o'clock for me is 8 o'clock for them. Oh, are we going to get our students together? And the whole cultural consideration. You know, the Middle East, I worked in the Middle East for 5 years. We always worked on Sunday, right? Sunday is a working day, whereas Friday isn't, of course. So those sort of things are really important to understand and to work with. And you should also be now thinking, oh, employability, maybe some of my students will end up working in the Middle East or collaborating with companies from the Middle East. Yeah, they need to understand this. It's important. Globalization of the curriculum, of course, international outreach, authentic experiences for you and your students, research partnerships, conference presentations. You know, if you worked in this area for a year or two, you would have a lot of expertise and skill and potentially a research partnership, probably global, that would then lead into papers and conferences. Notable awards. So you could use this experience for your LIFT Senior Fellow HEA. You could use it for VC awards, you know, just thinking laterally here. Promotion and APDP application for grants, and the last point, of course, it's fun and professionally stimulating and satisfying. So, of course, that's the most important one. Because if it's not fun, there's no point doing it. All right, sorry, I'm going to draw breath and think about what you might have in your mind in terms of ideas, questions at this point. And what I'm going to do before I ask you, sorry, it's my dog making noise if you can hear that. What I'm going to ask you is to actually just have a little chat around a table first, perhaps to, what do you call it, debrief around a table, and then we'll come back and have another group sort of debriefing. Now, if I look at tables, RJ, who are you? Ria, I'm going to put you by yourself. I'm going to put you up there with Tracy. Right, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 5 tables. I'm going to put us into table mode, and you can all have a chat. And I'll put 10 minutes on, and I'll pop around to the tables as well. Is that okay? Is everyone okay with that? Give me a thumbs up. Yeah, nod of the head. Great, excellent. Okay, so into table mode you go, and you can now talk to your tables. Thank you.